Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder. And throughout April, I will be looking at the worst rated and most panned episodes of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, and Jonathan Creek. Today, I will be looking at Diagnosis Murder, Murder by Remote, or as I like to call it, that time Steve moved out. We begin the episode with Steve being woken up by a racket caused by builders, and he tells Mark he's going to buy his own house.
Good morning, Lana. It's 6:55.
Oh, hello there, house. The doorbell goes and it's Jesse, who the home security lets in, and he's impressed and goes to get changed. The system goes off, warning not to use the pool, so Jesse goes back outside, only to find Lana has drowned. And into the credits we go. The verdict is Lana was electrocuted, and Jesse fills Steve in on how he knew her and how high-tech the house is. So Steve tracks down the security company's owner, who also has a high-tech house. Lana's dad gave permission for Bruce to access the cameras at the house, which shows Lana's death, so he gives Steve a copy. Ellie Rose fangirls over Amanda, wanting to be just like her, but can't stomach dead bodies, while Steve and Mark view a house which has its own panic room and security system, so Steve wants to buy it right away. Ellie introduces Mark to the wonders of the internet as they look at Bruce, who goes to Steve's house to tinker around and hack into the security system. Mark gets attacked by the cupboard as he sets up the projector, showing Steve as a little kid, which is indeed Wickle Barry Van Dyke. Aw, look at him. Steve comes home but doesn't interfere with movie time, and the next day, as Mark helps Steve to pack, he mentions another pool death of a woman with the same security system, but Steve isn't interested. Mark and Jesse go back to see Bruce and meet Maria, his housemaid, and they sit down to chat in front of the most boring artwork I've ever seen.
A grayish blob?
Right.
Bruce is aware of the other pool death, but says the computer records show she ordered the cover to close on her, and says his competition, Donald Purdy, has the skills to hack his system. Donald is not happy about this accusation and says Bruce stole his security system, and he seems to be talking to it, planning his next victim, who is foolishly smoking near some propane tanks, which the computer is very interested in. While furniture shopping, the Sloanes run into Phil Leaper, who boobily slinks up to Steve. Don't do it, dude, she's probably a psycho. And then we get a jarring cut to Maria in traffic before it cuts to Bruce sleeping as the house seals the room and pumps it full of gas. Maria makes it to the house, which lets her in and tells her something is up in Bruce's room, so she rushes upstairs and opens the window before calling the police. Bruce is hauled into the hospital and Jesse tries to save his life while Mark stands around unhelpfully and oh, he's dead, Jim. Well, it's off to Steve's new house, where Mark talks about his wife and Steve's sister Carol, but a phone call interrupts this trip down memory lane, reporting that Bruce's system had been compromised. Steve thinks Donald is to blame, so he's brought in for questioning, which he's not happy about it, and he attacks Cheryl, poor thing. And Ellie tells Mark she can't find Bruce's next of kin, so he goes to ask Maria for help. She says he had a family but doesn't know anything about them, and blames herself for what happened because she was stuck in traffic. This lady Annette asks for some autopsy reports, which Ellie fluffs around trying to find, until she remembers she left them with Brucey Boy, who Annette recognizes as Mr. Luca, as he had previously brought his son into the hospital, and she had to break the news to him that he had died. She reveals that 2 years later she lost her own son, which caused her marriage and life to fall apart because it was ruled self-inflicted, which she refuses to believe. Mark confirms with Annette that the surgeon that worked on Bruce's son was Lana's mother and assures her that her son didn't unalive himself. Mark, Steve and Jesse discuss the case and realise that Bruce was offing the children of the medical staff who failed to save his son, and Mark concludes that Donald didn't actually kill Bruce. He says that Bruce did it to himself, knowing that Maria would be there to save him, but she wasn't and it backfired, so that's that. Oh my god, a 13-inch colour television! Wow! That box is way too big for that. Amanda learns that Jerry, propane smoking guy, was killed an hour ago, which Jesse says is impossible until he realizes that Bruce could have programmed the computer ahead of time. And Amanda panics when she remembers Mark was part of the Luca case too. Jesse rings Steve to warn him, but his battery dies, so he goes out to use a payphone, leaving Mark to get sealed in the room. So the police assemble trying to break in as Mark tries to break out. With no success, they decide to go ask Donald for help, who does a runner Lana, only to get grabbed by Steve, while Mark ensures Steve will never get his deposit back. He writes a note to Steve and then passes out, but luckily Discount Doc Ock is successful and lets Air and the police into the house. As Mark is taken away, Steve finds the note, which, full disclosure, looks like it says, "To my neon son Steve." And at the hospital, Steve admits he's moving back in and he watches some old home movies. Okay, someone is going to need to explain to me why this is the lowest rated episode of the show, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Sure, the technology is a little dated and a home security system killing people is a little goofy, but this episode has a lot of heart as well as a high body count. There are some really lovely moments between Mark and Steve, sold even more so by them being real life related. And those home movies were lovely to watch, as well as watching them watching it, because it gave me a lot of nostalgic feelings. I guess this episode falls at the right time, as I recently got my own place, just like Steve did, and it evolved my relationship with my parents, so I liked the story. This story was very much about the bond between parent and child. Bruce's whole motive was because of the grief of losing his son, and he caused that grief to those he blamed. Annette's story came out of nowhere. She was kind of in the background and didn't get referenced by name. I had to read her name badge. But then suddenly she was integral to the plot. She acted her ass off, and my heart broke for her. Ellie Rose was cute and a fun addition, and I wish she was recurring, but she only appeared in one other episode. Now, on to the flip side. We had a few dumb components. Phil Leaper was a really weird-ass addition, as she was aggressively flirty, but only appeared briefly in a single scene. Bruce's computer, as I said, was a bit goofy. He even named it Hal. Steve's apartment he loved so much was ugly as hell. Bruce's stupid plan to throw suspicion onto Donald was bizarre, and I know it's a little random, but Jesse's friend who died at the beginning is listed as Laura, but they repeatedly refer to her as Lana, which bugs me. It's a weird mistake. But having said all that, I think it's a good episode, not deserving of being dead last in the rankings. I can think of episodes much worse than this one. Remember that time Mark got punched across the room by a legit vampire? Well, according to IMDb, that one is better than a story about grief and the importance of family. We have 4 victims. Lana Kravitz, who was electrocuted in her pool by her home security system, Denise Thorsten, who was drowned in her pool when her security system closed the cover, Annette Lee's son, who was suffocated by car fumes due to their home security system, and Jerry Tam, who smoked too close to some propane tanks after his home security system blew out the pilot light. All thanks to our killer, Bruce Locatelli, who sought revenge for his son's death by killing the children of those involved. And in trying to be too clever, he ended up ending his own life. So there you have it. That was Murder by Remote. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to keep investigating with me. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.